Okay. Welcome to the Clackamas County Commission Board of Directors policy sessions for issues. And Gary, you're up with strategy.
Thank you, Chair Smith. We have quite a lot of strategic items to share with you and updates. All commissioners are present. Commissioner Savas is online. First, COVID-19 risk level update. There's about to be a change, so we wanted to talk that through with you, commissioners, and decide what you'd like to do next. And part of this also was a letter the Association of Oregon Counties has distributed asking if counties want to sign on. But first, let's do the general update, and then we'll go to the letter. We have Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management, to give a quick update. Go ahead, please, Nancy.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. So yes, it's been in the media the last few days, of course, about the possibility of going into extreme risk again. And that has to do with the metrics that the governor is using. So the first metric is 200 per 100K or more for Clackamas County, because we're a large county. And we are now at, let me see here, 244.7. So that's one metric that has been met. And then there are the hospital metrics that the governor has just added just a few weeks ago. So the peak number of beds occupied by COVID plus patients has to be over 200, which is now 319. And the percentage change from last week is now 37.4, and they don't want that over 15. All of those metrics have now been met. So we still have not received a media release from the governor. I just checked to make sure it didn't come in the last 5 minutes. But we are expecting the governor to move us into extreme risk on Friday, which is April 30th.
Okay, Nancy, any questions for Nancy Bush on this? Gary?
All right, so the next then, the Association of Oregon Counties distributed a letter late last night asking if county commissioners statewide would like to send a letter to Governor Brown asking her to please do not close restaurants and small businesses when you move counties into extreme risk. So while you can choose to individually sign this, wanted to ask if commissioners, you all wanted to sign this, or if you wanted just to make a decision right now, because they want to know by, I think, noon today if you're going to sign this or not.
I'm going to read the last sentence in the last paragraph from the Associated Oregon Counties letter. We can flip the script by removing state-mandated business restrictions on our communities while empowering our county health departments to uphold high expectations for ongoing health and safety measures as recommended by the CDC. I think that's a very, very poignant statement. Christina, there's a light on.
Yes, I have Commissioner Savas and then Commissioner Fisher.
Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, a couple things here. I would indeed like to put my signature on this, so please do that. We have made statements and we have taken a position on
Excuse
this
me,
before.
Paul, can you just wait a second? We're turning up the volume in here. We are having trouble. Just a minute. Are we okay, Christina? Paul, can you start over? I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Sure, I just wanted
There.
to say that, yeah, please put my signature. I would like to sign. I think we should all sign the letter. I like the letter as crafted. I appreciate what the governor is trying to do on behalf of trying to keep people safe, but the goalpost, moving the goalpost and being inconsistent has been put our businesses in a very dangerous position and their employees. Granted, we're putting more focus on the hospital capacity. I support that. I'm supportive of using that as an important metric to gauge it. But at the same time, I think it's upon us all as individual elected officials to do and speak to taking all the precautions on behalf of the people that we're concerned about, on behalf of the businesses and the families and the people that are hospitalized, all of that. A long-winded statement that we got to be supporting, again, all of those precautions, social distancing, mask wearing, and the vaccines. Granted, some people are not going to take the vaccine. I get that, but I think we should be encouraging people that are comfortable with doing it to get the vaccine or to talk to their doctor or a close family member and whether or not they should, and try to coerce them into cooperatively into considering taking the vaccine. But we need to be on all fronts on the preventative side and representing our constituents so we can get these numbers down. But the targeting the businesses where the outbreak is not really occurring per se, I don't think has worked out very fairly.
I will say this, based on her new metric standard. I think she's having a press conference today. Is that right, Nancy?
Either a press conference or there will just be a media release. We're not sure yet.
Okay, she's doing the metrics differently. It's a week-by-week, I don't even know what you call it, something new. She's going to be judging so basically, we could be a yo-yo. 1 week, we could be high risk. The next week, we could be extreme. We don't know what's going on, right?
That is a possibility, yes.
Well, she
Which
did
if-
say that. Last night on my
Yes.
tri-chairs meeting, Leah Horner did say that.
Things change so quickly that I hate to say that's exactly what she'll come out with, but it is a possibility.
Yeah, thank you. Sonia Fisher.
So question, the last time we went into extreme risk, there was a deep concern about community spread, and there was evidence that community spread happened indoors, first of all, and places indoors were restaurants and gyms. When the last time we went through where the outbreaks are, it did not look like it were happening in restaurants and gyms. So I'm just curious, what is the science telling us at this time about, because my overall outcome of what I want to understand is how these metrics fit our current situation. And I'm just wondering if they do or if they don't.
Yes. So for Clackamas County, I can speak for Clackamas County. For us, we are seeing a rise in cases that are related to school activities, not to school instruction, but school activities. There are some restaurant outbreaks, but I believe the last time I looked, it was 11. It could have went up, but we have over 1,000 restaurants, so it's a very small number of restaurants. I think a lot of that is among workers, not patrons. Correct? So that is where we're seeing increases. We do have other outbreaks when we look at them for workplaces, which are like construction, et cetera, which probably is, maybe from them riding together. A lot of, construction workers ride together a lot in trucks, those types of things. So there are other workplace outbreaks, but when you look at the large sources right now, it is related to schools, which is the data we've been bringing here to the commissioners.
Okay, so it really doesn't really make sense to shut down economic activity like gyms and restaurants and the other, I guess there's some entertainment capacity that will be brought back down.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that it really doesn't make sense from our local perspective. You're
Yes.
shaking your head, yes?
Yes, I am. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so
Yeah,
then-
I'm providing you with the facts, but when
Right,
you look
no,
at the facts.
and I
yeah.
appreciate that, because the other question that I have, and the media is kind of talking around this issue and not really giving us a clear answer. So the variant is here in Oregon, and it's much more contagious than the other form of COVID. Is that driving? I mean, is the science say that if we don't lock down now, then this variant's going to take over and it's going to be a complete disaster a month from now? Or, I mean, what are they basing this on, I guess?
I don't have the answer to that. I will say too, of course, I shared with the commissioners earlier this week that the variant testing is so little right now, right? I think are testing in Oregon like 3 or 4%, and we're one of the higher states just testing for variant. So I don't think there's anything to back that up either
No.
way.
Okay. And then my last question, I like Gina Nichols' letter, but my question is, if we followed the CDC recommendations at the local level, would we be able to adjust quickly enough? Say we had a unique situation in Oregon, like we're watching worldwide, we're watching what's happening in India, and it's catastrophic. So if there was a mutation and things were really moving very fast in Oregon and not the rest of the country, would the CDC provide guidance quickly enough for us to adjust at the local level? I guess would be my question.
I'm not sure I can really answer that. I will
Or
say.
is that just a scenario that is ridiculous and it just,
Well, I don't know that's a scenario. I mean, if we have something like that happening and it starts in Oregon, yes, CDC is going to be on it. We've seen that happen in other states. How quickly we'll be able to identify that and do something about it, I don't know.
okay, I mean, because really the crux of her letter is let the local public health authorities follow CDC guidelines. That's
Yes.
really what they're saying, and I like that idea, but I want to make sure that that's a good idea. So I'm looking to you, Nancy, to say,
Yeah,
would
well-
you suggest that as a policy that we do that at Clackamas County?
I think the local health authority needs more input into all these decisions that are being made, whether if they're at the state level or our level.
I would agree with
truly-
that.
yeah.
And I saw the same studies that Nancy did independently, that the testing for the variant is very, very low. And if indeed the variant is what fueling this, is then we need some solid data to make the decisions. I don't believe the decisions are based on solid data regarding the variant, and maybe other things as well.
Yeah.
Are you finished?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just still a little fuzzy on what this letter, we're asking to sign on to a letter that is saying, we're going to follow CDC guidelines. Would CDC be an appropriate measure? Do our local public health authority experts
So here's what I.
believe that the CDC guidance will be sufficient for us at the local level?
So here's what I could say, though CDC, I mean, OHA uses CDC guidelines to push it down to the local level. So we would have, and do have, the same access to CDC guidelines that OHA has.
Right.
If that's what you're
I
asking.
do know, I can think of a few examples where our restrictions are contrary, or more restrictive than what CDC has recommended.
Well, that's true, because the CDC said early on that schools were not the big spreader, that schools could open safely.
Right.
Yet, in Oregon, schools were the first entity to shut down.
Yeah, so then my question is, will that help us at the local level to just follow CDC guidelines?
So first of all, I need to mention that the schools are not under our authority,
Right,
okay? So I think we have to take schools out of this mix.
okay.
So they're not under our authority. So, but when it comes to our restaurants, when it comes to our gyms, I think that our public health authority maybe would need to, we would have to have some conversations with OHA, et cetera. But yes, I think our local public health authority needs more input on closures.
Well, but this letter says.
It does.
We will follow, the local authority will follow CDC guidelines and bypass the state. Basically, that's what this letter is saying.
I
And
know
so I
that-
guess I want to know, do our public health officials think that's a good idea?
So I know that Philip has seen this letter, and Philip said he didn't have any issues with this letter.
Okay,
I can tell you that.
then that's what I need to know, because our staff are pretty smart about this stuff, and I really rely on that.
But
So
I
I'm-
also, yeah, I
If
also,
Philip is good with this letter, then I'm good with this letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We have all commissioners who want to speak on this. Commissioner Schroeder?
Yeah, I just want to mention that there is on the health, Nancy, I asked you what was the most prevalent variant, and I think you said B117?
Yes.
The other day, yeah.
Yes.
And that's the one from Great Britain?
Yes.
From England?
The
Okay.
UK, yes.
There is a page on the Oregon Health Authority which gives us variant counts. The data is current as of April 17th. I think they're going to have another update tomorrow. Okay, I think that's important because.
Would you speak into your microphone,
Yeah,
Martha?
I think it's important because I was listening to OPB as I was driving in this morning, and they did say the contagion, it seems to be slipping down into younger demographics of people, 18 to like 40, something like that, yeah. Is that so, Nancy? I mean, it seems to be, in other words, those of us who are older and then got the vaccines first seem to be tapering off, and it's moving down to a.
yeah, we are seeing the surge that's in like the late teens into 40 to 45 range.
Okay.
Is where we are seeing more cases at this point.
Where, Nancy?
From 18, the late teens to around 45.
Okay, all righty.
And that was on OPB, so I'm assuming it's correct. but-
It is correct,
Okay.
yes.
Is that it, Martha?
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, Nancy, you said we were at 241 cases per 100,000.
Yes, sir.
Times 4.3, that's about 1,100 cases in the county estimated. It's an estimate, right?
Our
Okay.
total, of our total.
430,000, that's 4.3 times 241, that's about 1,100, roughly. So
Okay.
my question is this: of them, the people who are in hospital beds, are they 18 to 45, or are they still people from our very aged population?
I don't have that data with me. I would have to
Okay.
find that out.
Yeah, because I understand that across the nation, some 50% of all COVID deaths were were people in later age.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true up to this
okay.
point, this point.
So if I could make an assumption that now people in those hospital beds are probably still aged.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
I said,
and-
I don't know that for sure.
And so
given our
what I'm
cases,
getting at on this is that if that's still the case, then why don't we do what many of us said a year ago, protect the most vulnerable of our population while allowing our economy to work? Does that make sense? It does to me. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Christina?
Commissioner Savas has his hand
Commissioner
raised.
Savas?
Yeah, two things. I misspoke. I want to correct. I wanted to say not coerce, but convince people to take the vaccine. But on the vaccine note, Nancy, I appreciate, I'm not sure where it came from. Maybe it came from yourself, but the email late yesterday indicating that at the town center, our vaccination site, there were extra doses. And if people got there, soon enough, within a short window of time, there would have been some doses that otherwise would have gone to waste. So I just want to let people know, and I know that's not limited to just our side. I know that's happening from time to time. I'm hearing people say, hey, I found out that I was in the store and they had some extra doses and I was able to get my shot. Are there ways of directing people to those opportunities in the near future?
Yeah, that's a really good question because all of our clinics here, especially in Clackamas County, we fill all the appointments. So those doses that are extra come from people not showing up. So it is really difficult, which is why, sometimes that call goes out when people know other people. And now that we have 16 and over, it's easier to do that. It's hard to do that publicly because if you have 100 doses and 300 people show up, then you have some real disappointed people on your hands and you have a lot of things going on. So it's a really good question, Commissioner. And as we go forward, we're going to be trying to figure out how to do that better.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I just want to close with this to Commissioner Scholl's and everyone else's comments, I think, is that as we've been following the numbers and following this fourth, spike or outbreak, if you want to call it that, it really started in the demographic of the younger age groups. And it's logical that if you're a 20 or 30-year-old, that your mom or dad, if you're in the same household, you're probably going to pass it on to them. So we're seeing really a transmission into that age group. And so it started out with 20 to 30, then it was 30 to 35, and now we're in the 40-year-old. So it's moving opposite of what it did before. And fortunately, a lot of our senior citizens are vaccinated, not all, but a lot of them are. And the congregate settings are like the care centers and so forth, the prisons, everywhere where there's a lot of people in one building that are living there. There's the vaccinations went to them first. So I think the state's done a relatively good job of identifying the most vulnerable situations, if you will. I think the misstep or the timing or some kind of controls on the school after-hour activities should have been maybe handled a little bit differently. But I just want to just leave it with that the metrics, I think Commissioner Schultz asked a great question. I would love to know what the demographic is of the folks that are in the hospital beds today. That would be a great piece of information.
Thank you very much. And maybe she can bring it back on Thursday if she can get it in time. Thank you. Commissioner Schroeder.
Yeah, Nancy, is the supply chain for vaccination pretty solid now? I mean, in terms of getting enough out there as soon as possible?
Yes, I believe it is pretty solid now. Johnson & Johnson has been approved. We have not been giving out Johnson & Johnson yet because we have to have forms related to that
Right.
to give to every people in different languages that make sure they understand what the risks are. So when we get J&J back out there, and we are continuing to get more and more vaccine in from Moderna as well as Pfizer.
So it's really going to be the push to get the message out to get people vaccinated ASAP.
And having the staff
Okay.
to get people vaccinated.
But now that they've dropped it to 16 and above, you're not seeing any problem with supply. I mean,
Yeah, we still have a supply issue. We do
do
not
have a
have enough
supply, yeah.
vaccine for everyone that wants it.
See, that's the issue for me is if we don't get the people get vaccinated, this will all go away. I mean, really, but, well, not go away. It will prevent people from getting ill. I was told by my healthcare provider yesterday that we could anticipate booster shots in the fall.
Yes.
Okay, and
I
so
think
what
that-
would that, is that usually again the same one, like if I have Moderna, I'd go for Moderna again? Or does it
I
matter?
think that's still yet to be seen. I know Pfizer and Moderna both are already talking about booster shots, and it's going to be very similar to flu, I think, as we move forward.
What was that, Nancy? I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, both Pfizer and Moderna are talking about boosters. And I think this is going to be ending up like flu shots, where we're going to have, every year probably a different strain or something like that. The crystal ball is a little foggy on those things still, but I think that that's kind of, where we're going to see this going in our public health realm and the health realm.
Okay, commissioners, thank you. We need to move on for this. Commissioners, do all commissioners want to sign this letter, or do you, okay, am I hearing this? Yeah, Paul said, Martha, you good?
Sure.
Okay, commissioners, I'm instructing staff, you can go ahead and send this letter out with all 5 commissioners' signatures on that. Thank you very much. Gary, what's up next?
Thank you, Nancy. Next, staying on the COVID topic, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. I've asked Nancy to give an update on what the staff committee is doing. Nancy is leading that staff committee. Again, these are the $81 million that will be coming to Clackamas County. We've not seen a penny of it yet, but we're still preparing for that. Go ahead, please, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. So as Gary said, yes, we don't know what we're going to be getting yet up front. If they stick to the timeline, we should have something in our bank account by May 11th. We do not know if it's going to be half or if it's going to be whole. We still haven't heard any of that information yet. However, the work group has been working on this, and we have put together a purpose statement, which I'm going to read here in a second. And from this purpose statement, we have made, we're going to be making some recommendations to you, and hopefully we can talk about that just a little bit today.
Nancy, where did the purpose statement come from?
We actually developed the purpose statement in
The committee that was
In the
formed to
committee.
do that. Thank
Yes,
you very
ma'am.
much.
So, yeah, and along with that, we still do not have guidance, and we still do not have Q&A.
Okay.
Okay. So the purpose statement is Clackamas County has adopted a recovery framework with a focus on preparedness and resiliency for the $81.1 million the county will receive. While the allowable costs are broad in nature, we are committed to supporting those Clackamas County residents, first responders, businesses, nonprofits, and other community partners who have been most impacted by COVID-19. In addition, Clackamas County continues to remain committed to communities and businesses of color. Including these lenses for decision and allocation appropriateness, Clackamas County will additionally allocate dollars to increase our ability to respond to the next disaster so that overall impacts to residents, businesses, and community partners are minimized to the extent possible. So as part of the process, all of you did receive a survey that the group has put together, and we will be sending that out. We were going to have it translated into Spanish as well as Russian, and we plan on having that run through the month of May and collecting that information. And we're working to make sure that we can get it out to all of our populations, including underserved populations as well. We also are talking about putting money into broad categories and then saying, just as this is an example, let's say 10% is going to go to businesses, for example, and putting that into a pot of money, and then putting these buckets related to the conversations we've had here with the commissioners. Those broad categories that we're looking at is nonprofits, broadband, essential employees, lost revenue, business support, and then it's administrative dollars to support getting the funding out, which we don't know if we can use any of these dollars for that yet or not, but we are going to have some administrative support for that. And infrastructure and preparedness. There's also discussions with the group about the library and the courthouse, and would that be a part of these dollars? And of course, we're going to look to the county commissioners to have those discussions with us as well. Yeah, so that is where we are. We had a meeting. We were meeting every week on Tuesday mornings, and continue to move that forward. With the nonprofits, for example, too, we're thinking that if we have a pot of money, let's say it's $5 million. Nonprofits or CBOs would have to apply for those dollars rather than we don't want to play favorites. So we want to
Right.
make sure there's a process in place. And Commissioner, our Chair, you mentioned last week, what is the criteria and how do we make
And I
those
would say
decisions?
nonprofits who did not receive any of the CARES money or any other money.
Correct.
I think there needs to be a checkbox for that. Have you received money? What has been your income stream? Because some nonprofits, their income streams
Yes, increased.
continued through all this.
Yes, that
Some
is correct.
nonprofits
Yes.
really took
Yes.
a terrible, terrible dive on this, and I think that needs to be considered in your form, Nancy.
Yes. And those are the types of things that we will put in the formula so we can do prioritization.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, do we have any further comments or questions for Nancy on there we go. Sonia?
Thank you, Chair Smith. So I guess my thought is, and I like how broad the statement is, and it includes, it just says it's sort of this focus, but then it's bigger than that. I mean, that's how I interpret what you said. So I like that, but instead of looking at what entity didn't receive certain dollars, it's like, what is the need based on COVID? So yes, we do have recovery that we need to look at, and then we have the future. But we can't ignore the effects of this pandemic, especially when it comes to children and families and mental health and behavioral health and all of that unmet need that has stemmed from the pandemic. So let's say a nonprofit who would be able to provide that support did receive CARES dollars or did receive something, but there's still an unmet need in our community. I wouldn't want to not.
So, and that also brings up a good point. There's a lot of other money coming in. This 81.1 million is for the county, but there is money coming in for behavioral health. There's money coming in, for children, and all of those other pots of money coming in. So one of the things too we want to make sure is we know where that's going. And again, a lot of that has not been defined yet for infrastructure, those types of things. So we want to use this money also uniquely and not do what I've been calling double funding. So that is also, it's not only CARES dollars, but it's also dollars coming in from the Rescue Act that's going into some of those other places that we don't know where it's going yet.
So that's all really good. Also, we know that we're getting money for broadband. So that was one issue that I noticed. If that's in a bucket, there's another pot of money.
We're not positive about that yet.
Oh, really? So I
Really?
got that from listening to someone at the FCC on a NACO legislative conference presentation about what that meant for local
No,
communities.
we do have our colleagues in the room
Yeah,
here
yeah.
from Technology Services, but we're still watching that. We think that may be a part of infrastructure, because I've heard some language around that, but there's nothing for sure yet around broadband.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving
I just
parts.
want to make sure that we want to look towards the future, but also look at what recovery we need for right now. Really important to have
I'm
both.
sure that when we get the opportunity, all commissioners will get to have their input on where this is going to, it's kind of hard to make the decisions until we have the goalposts and our rules and regulations by which to dish this out. I know we all have our wish lists. We all have ideas how we think this should be done, but thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, I have one other question. As far as I like the statement around our disenfranchised communities, how will we assure that the survey, I know you said there'll be 2 languages, but how are we looking at that equity lens to make sure we're getting this input from the broad spectrum of our community?
So, yeah, we talked about that this morning, and we do have our EDI officer, Martine, is also on the group with us, Martine, and we are talking about how to do that. Part of that's going to be done through the liaison group that we have in the EOC, who has a lot of communication with those groups, underserved communities, those that are not English speaking. They're going to help us get that out as well, and then we have other avenues through CBOs that we're looking at, and making sure that we at least give them the opportunity to answer the survey.
Oh, that's good. So that's already been prioritized and thought about, and you don't
Yes.
even need this commission, right?
I wouldn't say that.
I'm being silly, you guys.
Yeah, so I want to move this along because we can talk about if is what and, all this kind of stuff. Who's up, Christina?
Commissioner Savas has the same.
Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, just real quickly, it's gonna be a tough job. This is not gonna be easy. There are, so many factors, and Nancy, I think you touched on it, but, just bearing in mind the people that receive rent relief and people that did not receive rent relief. So, it's gonna be almost impossible to make this fair, but it's gonna be very difficult. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Okay, thank you very much, Nancy. Gary, what's up next?
Thank you, Nancy. So this is just an update, Commissioners. You get to make the final call. Staff's just doing all this preparation work and bring it back to you. And when, Nancy? When do you think this will come before the board?
So I think that, because we talked about that we probably wouldn't be able to spend anything until July. So we definitely will have something, probably late May. Late May.
If they get it out in May.
Yeah, if they get it out, that's true. And we have to look at the regulations, and we may have to make adjustments. So late May, early June.
Okay, thank you. Martha Schroeder.
Yeah, real quick, so I'm assuming that you're working pretty closely with Brenda Durbin's shop with this?
We actually have representation from that department on the committee.
Okay, because we've been meeting with the Association of Oregon Counties Community Solutions Group regionally to talk about what the Tri-County area is doing with this. So I'll try and get an update for you folks from our last set of meetings, okay?
That would be wonderful, Commissioner Schroeder. Oh, we need to move this discussion along. Commissioner Fisher, can you be brief, please?
Thank you, Chair Smith. We were talking about some listening sessions in regards to this. What is the status of that along with the survey?
Yes, so we're getting the survey out first, and then we'll be talking about listening sessions and maybe having one or two of those.
Okay,
Thank you very
excellent.
much.
I just wanted to make sure that hadn't changed.
Yeah,
So thank you.
that community outreach is still moving forward. We're really concentrating on the survey because it takes longer.
Okay, Gary.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The rent assistance program item is being pulled because it's not ready for you yet. Next, advisory boards and commission appointments. Christina, go ahead, please.
So we have one advisory board and commission's recommendation today. It's for the Milwaukee Center Community Advisory Board, staffed through the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. They currently have 2 openings on their commission. They have 12 members who are allowed with 3-year terms at a time. Looks like they received 1 application, and 1 application is recommended to be appointed. That would be Carol Campbell. It would be her first appointment. And that is your ABC for today.
I'll accept a motion.
Move we accept?
Seconded.
Commissioner Schroeder has moved to accept Carol Campbell, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Christina, can you call the poll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schroeder?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Up next, Gary.
Next, review of your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, April 29th, 2021 at 10 a.m. You'll have a wildfire update, COVID update, 2 public hearings. The first on adopting the Clackamas County Transit Development Plan. Second on allowing to permit a gate on Hofelt Drive. You've had policy sessions or issues conversations on both of those items. You have a board discussion item on revising the effective date of the short-term rental ordinance. You agreed to extend that until July 2022, and this is to formalize that. Then you have a long consent agenda, all items you've already previously reviewed at issues. If you have any questions on any items, please let me know prior to Thursday, and I'm happy to get answers for you. Next, Commissioner Shull had asked to talk about the Veterans Village, in particular our contract with Do Good, and also some homelessness issues you'd like to raise. So please go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes. Good morning. Yesterday, I had a tour of the Veterans Village. Young Marine veteran, Corporal Sean, showed me around. I was pleased with the appearance and the neatness of the facility, and the residents I spoke with had very positive remarks to say. And I think that the example of Veterans Village is an example of something we need to do for some of our other homeless people. I had a message from one of our constituents last week about the Do Good management. That's why I sent an inquiry to you, Gary Schmidt, about how they're doing for us. The report was that they're doing a good job for us, so I'm happy to hear that. Yesterday, I toured homeless encampments in Clackamas County. And it was a very interesting experience for me. I thought I knew a lot about homeless issues, but yesterday I learned a great deal more. The people I came in contact with looked like they stepped out of the year 2019 H3S assessment on homelessness in Clackamas County. They had all sorts of different backgrounds, but the one thing that I thought was interesting was that they all had some level of self-medication going on, from black tar heroin down to marijuana and other drugs. But drugs permeate the issue. The other thing I found out was that the people I spoke to were from Portland. And it looks to me like the problem is moving this way. So the issue with homelessness is so complex, it's kind of mind-boggling. And as we see how other cities and counties in the nation have been overwhelmed by it with often very inadequate responses, I'm left with the thought that we are, in fact, entering a period of our next crisis. And the other thing I want to make very clear is that I was impressed with the humanity of the people I talked to yesterday. They were all articulate. They were all conscious, the ones I spoke to. Some of the people that I came in contact with were not comatose. They're out of it. But there is a overwhelming sadness, a kind of a heartbreak of humanity, if you will, of people who have dropped out of the system for all sorts of different reasons and cannot quite find their way back. They're incapable of getting back to a normal life. They do need help. So I just wanted to finally just make a couple comments on ideas. We have been building supportive housing and doing a good job at it. But those projects will not get the numbers off the street that we need to help. And, oh, by the way, let me say this. Everyone who owns property in a business around these encampments is suffering, and many of them are leaving. We have a responsibility to them as well. So putting somebody who is on fentanyl, methamphetamine, and black tar heroin into a supportive housing situation is not going to work. We need an immediate response, and that's got to look like a military bivouac. Something simple, affordable, but to get them off the street into a safe environment, maybe with their showers and restrooms. 2, we need we need to have an ongoing mental health and drug addiction support program going on. And then into another phase of longer-term, temporary mini houses, if you will. Many of these people on the street yesterday said that is what they're looking for. Okay, so that would be for people who have been through some degree of mental health and drug addiction help. And then finally, our third phase needs to be some sort of mini house project, planned community, small houses, so people who have recovered, have got a job, they can go to work. And let me finish with this one thing, and that is this. Everyone I talked to yesterday, no matter how horrible their situation was, and I saw people their bodies were literally burning up from methamphetamine. They said to me, Commissioner, I just want to have a chance to help myself. I don't want a handout. I want maybe a help up. But they all are looking for dignity and self-respect. And you cannot give away, with taxpayer money, dignity and self-respect. Okay? So that's where we're at, and I say this today because we are in a go situation. We must act. We must act in unconventional ways, and we must do everything opposite of what Portland's doing, because Portland is not helping Clackamas County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. We have several commissioners in the queue. Christina, who's up?
Commissioner Savas has the same.
Commissioner Savas, go.
Yeah, just quickly, I appreciate Commissioner Scholl's comments with regards to what he saw yesterday, and the idea of this, most especially the idea of the tiny homes or the facilities similar to Veterans Village. That was the goal. Yes, it's a sombering experience. It's an eye opener, but that was our goal. Our goal was to broach the Veterans Village as a transition facility, broach it as a means to say we can do it right, we can manage it correctly. Do Good Multnomah has done an outstanding job there, and I applaud them for all the work that they've done. Our goal was to use that, use it as a pilot. It's proven itself. The pilot has been accepted now. It's now a permanent fixture, if you will, to some degree. And our goal was to build that for other people that are homeless, women and children and other folks that are homeless. So that was our goal. We've hit, for some reason, a political roadblock. I'm not sure what it is, but we can't afford to do just the fully structured, full built out and meet the need for these high expensive, affordable housing models. The tiny homes and the transition facilities like the Veterans Village, to emulate that and do it more affordably and to serve more people, I think is the most humane thing we can do.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Schroeder.
Yeah, thanks for that. Commissioner Savas did a great job with the Veterans Village. I'm just going to make a couple of suggestions. I did find out that our military folks at Camp Withicum had no knowledge that that existed, and I've hesitated to suggest a tour of some kind because I don't want to infringe on people's privacy there. But I might throw that out. Maybe we can discuss it. But again,
A tour of the Camp Withicum people?
Well, the Camp Withicum, General Stencil, perhaps, or some of his delegates to see what we've been doing. They're a resource for us in terms of building, in terms of logistics and everything else. And we haven't really ever fully utilized them. And they were surprised to know what we'd been doing. But again, I want to be careful that we're not invading people's privacy, but even if we talked to them and showed them what we've done with Clayton Moore, I don't know, Gary, I think we should maybe ask staff, but again, I want to be cognizant that these are people who are transitioning in recovery, and, you know, like bringing a whole group out is not necessarily, but maybe something quietly where we could get maybe a representative and just Commissioner Scholl can help them out with that, Commissioner Savas. I'd be okay with that. And the other suggestion is, you know what really worked, Gary, is when we did the housing piece where we got together with the interdisciplinary team to come up with this idea. But let me caution you, colleagues, about this, is that we're going to have to show self-discipline. If this is a priority, is it a new priority? And that money came out of our general fund. So I'm not against it, but you know, we got to put that in the context of our budget and what our long-term priorities are. I think that we tried to embed housing as a key piece of that. And I will also say to us, I think we need the continuum. I think we need this transitional stuff, you know, the smaller housing, whatever. But I do think we still need to continue to use some of the tools that the Housing Authority has for some of those larger developments as well. I don't think it's one size fits all with this. So for me, it's a continuum of where you meet people, which Commissioner Scholl just did, and then what do you do to get a transition? You know, we do have wraparound service dollars now, evidently, right, Commissioner Fisher? We've got that. So how does this work with all of that together? So I'm not going to belabor it. I just wanted to point out a few things. And Gary, I don't know, is this part of our priority or not at this point?
Housing is still one of your strategic results. It's on
Okay.
your chart here.
So
And
we wouldn't be moving from one thing to another. I mean, we're
still
already
alive.
there.
But
Okay.
Gary, didn't the prior board make the commitment of general fund money to housing, and was it 1.5 million? What was the number?
Was it?
1.2.
1.2.
Okay.
So there's already general fund money yearly, 1.2 million going into housing, and maybe that can be earmarked specifically for veterans. In light of all the other housing monies coming in, we might want to consider that moving forward. I don't know, it's just an idea.
It's just, we probably, we can't, we almost should have a work session, don't you think?
Oh,
Something like
yeah,
that,
definitely
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that. Coming up after budget.
Okay, after budget? Yep.
After budget. Christina,
Commissioner Fisher has her hand up.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, we just saw, I don't know if folks saw in the newspaper, Washington County was able to use turnkey dollars to purchase some, I think, 2 motels, of which they are going to be using as their transitional shelter. I really think even if we aren't able to pull something together in Clackamas County with the current turnkey dollars, we should keep that in mind as a model to get people stable and then move them all out. I think there's potential for partnership with the other jurisdictions through the homeless services dollars, and we have to keep that as part of our priority. Because Commissioner Scholl is correct. You have to give people a safe place where they can have dignity and respect to be housed and to begin the process of recovery and healing. That is the first step. I would be cautious, and I get concerned because Portland has looked at doing this, of doing lots of, when we went to see different sites where I would consider it substandard housing, where there's not heat or air conditioning or plumbing, or they're just little shacks. And I just have a problem with women and children being placed. If we institutionalize that kind of a model, I have a problem of children and families in pods like that. I would like to see us, since we do have the opportunity for resources to treat our folks with more dignity and respect. I loved the Veterans Village after talking with veterans and how important that sense of camaraderie is for veterans. And that place, they come in and they move out, and they move out to housing. And we had that pipeline set up because we have the Clayton Moore Commons, where there's a place for folks to go, and we put that all together. But we have a lot to do, a lot of different models. I think Commissioner Schroeder hit the nail on the head. A continuum of options is critical. And we have laid out a framework with our approval of the local implementation plan, and now we as a commission get to fill in the gaps and really look at how that is going to work. So we definitely, Gary, somehow we need to systemize this board's work on this issue, and I don't know how. I leave that to you and the staff to recommend that.
Thank you.
But really good discussion and ideas. Appreciate everyone's interest.
Thank you, commissioners, for your comments on that. Gary, what's up next?
Well, quickly, before we leave, Chair, you're talking about this on Wednesday, Commissioners, your Land Use Housing Strategies Project. So this ties right into what your conversation you're having on Wednesday, so you can
Great,
continue
thank
that
you.
there. If you don't mind, Chair, quickly, can I ask Rod Cook to come forward? The Do Good contract, many of you have asked me about this. Commissioner Shull just did. There was some news, media, about did Do Good have some, were they responsible for a housing project in the city of Portland and Multnomah County that was filled with mold and unlivable conditions for residents? Do Good has done very, very good for us here at Clackamas County. In my opinion, that issue in Portland was really the responsibility of the city and county. They own that facility, not Do Good. But Rod, can you tell us very quickly, Do Good, our relationship and how we've worked with them, and any concerns, if any, from us?
As has been mentioned earlier, Do Good does the services at our vet village, and they have very high marks, very well respected, and they only do the programming piece. Our housing folks are the ones who maintain the buildings, the actual pods, so we have a relationship that way, which is far different than how it was set up seemingly in the Portland area.
So what services do they provide?
Basically wraparound services, so anything a vet's
For
going.
addiction, is specifically mental health, something else?
I'm sorry,
Exactly what type of wraparound services? All services? All?
Yes, anything a vet may need, they Think of them as a social worker, a connector to services. I'm sure they don't have the expertise to do drug and alcohol per se or mental health per se, but they're going to get them connected to whatever they may need. So if it's workforce, drug and alcohol first, and it's the whole continuum of what a person may need as they come through the process.
Got it. And so to be clear, they provide service support. They are not owners or in charge of buildings.
Correct.
Thank you, Rod.
Very good.
Gary.
All right. Thank you, Rod, very much. Thank you, Commissioners. Next, Commissioner Schroeder wanted to share a draft congressional letter she intends on sending regarding the Non-Opioids Prevent Addiction in the Nation Act. Go ahead, Commissioner Schroeder.
Yes, colleagues, I just wanted to let you know, I wanted to give, if anyone else wants to sign this, we can do it that way, but I didn't want to send a letter on county letterhead unless I had run this by my colleagues. I think it's a pretty good idea. I'm going to look up some information now real quick so I can tell you a little bit more about this.
While you're looking that up, Commissioner, I read the letter. I like the tone. I like the directness. And I would like to be able to sign on with
Okay.
you
All right.
on this, but go ahead with your
Well,
presentation.
basically, the information I had, it doesn't prevent or prohibit opioids. It changes Medicare policy to allow other non-opioid meds and devices to be offered by hospitals and doctors. Okay, so it's a way to help and reduce addictions and accidental overdoses.
Right.
Okay? It is being, I believe it's being sponsored by pharmaceutical companies, which I think is actually pretty interesting and good that they're seeing this addiction issue. So is it, number one, okay if I sign it? I mean, I don't, I mean,
Yeah,
I
let's give,
can, all
I
right?
want other
But if
commissioners to be
commissioners
able
wanna sign
to,
it?
just a minute. I want other commissioners to weigh on to see if they want to sign on it too. Commissioner Fisher, do you have, okay, Commissioner Scholl? And Commissioner Savas, do you want to be able to sign on the letter as well?
Yes, I will, thank you.
Okay, yes, so
Okay,
Martha,
great.
you have all of us on board with you.
Yay, I'll have Tracy print out all
Sure.
our names and the chair, and they'll be delighted.
That's wonderful. I think like I said, I really like the tone of it. And it's a huge issue. Oh, my gosh, it's just a huge issue. Thank you for that, Commissioner Schroeder, for taking the initiative and doing this. Gary.
All right, next item, also Commissioner Schroeder, an update on the Willamette Falls Trust.
Well, Paul and I have been working pretty diligently. I know Commissioner Fisher had some questions, and I thought it would be better if I talked to everyone at once. It's been a very interesting experience. As you know, we did get a letter from the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, which basically they're withdrawing from the Willamette Falls Trust. And I think that's unfortunate, but I think the letter speaks for itself and is very clear from the tribe's perspective why they feel strongly about this. But as a result, I've also been in contact with the Willamette Falls Trust and all of the other tribes, Umatilla, Siletz, Warm Springs, have been involved and invited on to be on that board, as have the Grand Ronde, but there was some issues with respectful behavior from their perspective, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to be politically appropriate here. And from my observation, the trust has wanted to be the convener of these larger intertribal issues. I talked to Gerard the other day of the trust. I will just give you my read on that. I'm not sure that we as a commission or the trust necessarily is the correct venue to vet these intertribal issues. These are sovereign nations. Okay, for every single tribe, the Willamette Falls is a wholly special area, but it is also, according to the Grand Ronde, who I believe this is quite true, it is their ancestral homelands. So these are intertribal issues that that are kind of influencing the trust, influencing and may influence the movement of the project. I am going to suggest that we keep a narrow focus, and Gary, you can jump in any time, or Paul, a narrow, very narrow focus, and really focus on what we need to see happen as a partner, and that is to have the Riverwalk go forward. The Grand Ron has purchased their property. I do think it's almost interesting historically. They've kind of repurchased what their ancestral homeland. I think that's the way it goes, but they are the owners. And they are the folks that we need to be dealing with directly, I believe, with the Riverwalk conversation with the public partners. This does not mean that we should exclude the conversation with the other tribes. I want to make that clear, and I'll make it clear again. It's not that we want to exclude a conversation of this holy, sacred place that everyone finds important to their memories and their narratives and their travel history. However, I believe the trust needs to stay narrow in its mission as well. I think the trust needs to focus on what their role is actually garnering dollars to make sure that we have more money and more dollars, more resources to make the Riverwalk go forward. I have suggested that intertribal issues, that we contact the governor's office and see if the governor's office with their intertribal, with their Native American specialists actually start convening that conversation. There are also two other groups. There is the affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, which is pretty similar to what we might consider our Association of Oregon Counties. Okay, so this is where everybody in the Northwest gets together. And there is also a National Congress of American Indians. And that is similar to what we would consider our National Association of Counties. So I'm wondering if, I'm not saying the conversation shouldn't happen, I'm just saying that I'm not sure that we have the overall history and notion and the narrative. I know I don't, I just don't, to really have that conversation move forward with the intertribal issues. And I would suggest if the trust wants to move forward with something like this, they ought to be working with one or both of those organizations if they want to be involved in that. But right now, it is a very delicate situation between the trust and the Grand Ron. And they are the owners of the property, and I feel very strongly that in our culture, in our way of doing things, that this is contractual ownership and they are the owners of the property as it stands. That doesn't mean that we're going to dismiss other cultural conversations. But if we're going to have to narrow our focus, I think we have to be pretty clear about that. So, Paul, I don't know if you want to add anything. I'm kind of going out on a limb here, trying to mediate.
Commissioner Schroeder, Commissioner Chavez is in the queue. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Martha. You did an excellent job of laying out the situation. I just want to emphasize a couple points, and then I'll conclude my comments. That is, you're right. They are sovereign nations, and I think that the convener for these deeper conversations about the history and telling the stories and the fishing rights and all of these things about this special place should be done by the state. I think they have a department or a person that deals with the Indian affairs and so forth. And we got to remember the pain and that the American Indians, indigenous to our land, have gone through. And we don't have the cultural competencies to understand all those unique aspects. And getting a group of people around the table with those competencies and understandings, I think is the best remedy to airing these things. And let's just keep our eye on the project and encourage the state and all the tribes to get together and let the state be the convener for a deeper conversation about all these other elements. That's all I have. And Martha, you did a great job. Thank you.
Gary, moving forward on this, can you make a comment?
Yes, so you happen to be meeting with the Grand Ronde some members of the tribe today. That's afternoon's not the purpose of this topic, but in general, I think that Commissioner Schroeder outlined it very well, is that we should stay focused on the legacy project, the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, and allow the interpretation of very intricate treaty rights to the tribes. That is not our role or responsibility, so.
I would agree wholly with that. It sounds like there's a dispute between the tribes, and Commissioner Savas said that we do not maintain the cultural competencies to even think about being interveners. I think the county's role is very prescriptive, and we go forward with that. Thank you very much for bringing that forward, Commissioner Schroeder. And Commissioner Savas, thank you both for your roles on this important committee. Gary, what's up next?
Very good. With your permission, Chair, I'd like to do the consent agenda request next, and then finish with Commissioner Communications. Is that
Sure, go
okay?
ahead.
All right. We have, I think the directors are all here, so we'll go in order. Technology Services first. Approval to purchase HPE Aruba network switches for access layer networks in county buildings. Total purchase price is $231,209.97, allocated from the Budget Capital Fund within Technology Services. Dave Cummings is the director. Please give a quick update, Dave.
Am I on?
Microphone's on. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Good morning, Commissioners. This is an ongoing network refresh project that we've been upgrading over this past year. We've already upgraded network switches in the PSB building, the DSB building, and this group of network switches that'll be coming in will do the outlying areas. It's something we've been wanting to do for the last 5-6 years, and frankly, the old network switches are getting to be very old. So this group will be deployed on the top of the hill here in the outlying buildings, and will help refresh our network and keep us going. That's basically it.
Commissioners, any objections? Commissioner Scholl, comment?
Is that 231,000 a competitive bid, or is that the
Yes,
cost?
it was.
It was, okay.
Okay, any more comments? Commissioners, we like this, right? Yes, thank you.
All right, so we'll put it on consent agenda next week.
Okay, great. Thank you so
Great,
much.
Thank you very much. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon, Department of Consumer and Business Services, Oregon Insurance Division, Senior Health Insurance Benefits Assistance Program, Senior Medicare Patrol, total revenue of $10,000, no general funds involved. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, and these funds would help the SHIVA program improve and expand state efforts to provide Medicare, Medicaid beneficiaries with education about health care, fraud, errors, and abuse. Outreach efforts for this program are focused on rural, Hispanic, and tribal communities. There's no match requirement here, and there's no general funds are involved with this revenue contract.
Any questions or objections for the presenter? Seeing none, that's a go.
Great, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Next, Transportation and Development. Approval of a contract with Eagle Elsner for the South Central Point Road and New Era Road intersection realignment. Construction contract. Total contract value, $1,010,000. Wow, look at those, 1010. $1,010,101, I'm saying that wrong, $1.01 from the County Road Fund. Go ahead, Dan.
That 1 cent really closes the deal. This contract will complete all work and construction, including excavation, embankment, stormwater facilities, roadway paving, electrical, landscaping, signage, and striping related to the realignment of the intersection of Central Point Road and New Era. As discussed, I'm not going to repeat the contract value, but that is budgeted through our CIP project, paid for by county road funds and HB 2017 safety money. No general fund is associated with this particular project. The contract will extend through December 30th of 2022.
Any objections or comments? Commissioner Scholl.
Question, Dan, does that contract price include that retaining wall that we talked about?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thanks. I hope it does.
Any objections or questions? Seeing none, that's a go.
All right, will you confirm that for Commissioner Shaw, please,
Yes, I
later
will.
today? Dan, thank you. Next, approval of a contract with Murray Smith for design services for the 2022 paving packages. Design contract, total contract value $570,778, County Road Fund and Community Road Fund, no general funds. Go ahead, Dan.
This contract will provide project management and coordination for 4 identified paving projects to be bid in the summer of 2022. Contract total was already read to you. Basically, Community Road Fund and County Road Funds will be used to subsidize this contract. No general fund will be used. This project will provide project management and coordination, development, design criteria, survey, utility coordination, geotechnical, temporary traffic control, pavement markings, and bid assistance, monumentation, preservation, and right-of-way services for the 2022 contract paving projects. The county has identified 4 primary projects for our 2022 paving season, which are Sunnyside Road 122nd to 132nd, Sunnyside Road from 132nd to 162nd, Boyer Road and King Road area paving packages, and the McLaughlin neighborhood paving packages. These projects are part of the annual program to preserve the pavement of the 1,400 miles of county roadways.
Any questions or objections for the presenter? Seeing none, that's a go, Dan.
All right,
so much.
thank you. Next, finance, approval of a parking sublicense agreement with Weston Investment Company doing business as American Property Management for the Clackamas County Justice Court. This is a monthly payment of $140 and will be paid through Justice Court fees and fines. No general funds involved. Jeff Jorgensen, Facilities Director, please go ahead.
Good morning. This is a lease for 7 parking spots in the Clackamas Town Center Mall for employees of the Justice Court, which will then releases the parking spots in front of the facility for the public to come and the citizens that are coming to the Justice Court. So they've had a lease for several years. It's been signed by Judge Brisbane. It was determined this should come to the commissioners, but it is for a total of $1,680 for the entire year from January through December.
And that's being paid from her budget.
That's correct.
Thank you. No general funds are involved. Any other comments or objections? Seeing none, that's a go.
Great, thank you. Next, disaster management, approval of an amendment with Durgesh, doing business as Econo Lodge Southeast, for providing hotel rooms for homeless families and individuals. The amendment will add $164,700 for an additional 61-unit night lodging. Total contract value not to exceed $528,400, funded through the State of Oregon General Fund. No county general funds are involved. Nancy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, this is the continuation of protecting our houses from COVID and through these contracts. As Gary said, there's no general fund. It is FEMA funding or the State of Oregon. And I don't think it got on the list, but we need to have this signed on Thursday.
Any objections or questions for the presenter? Seeing none, that's a go, Nancy.
Okay. Next, approval of an amendment with SRS, a limited liability company of Nevada, doing business as Budget Inn of Gladstone, for providing hotel rooms for homeless families and individuals. Amendment will add $128,100 for an additional 61 nights of lodging, funded through the State of Oregon general funds. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. This is the same purpose, is for the houseless and to protect them through from COVID as well. And again, this is FEMA funding and the State of Oregon funding. And because the contract runs out on the 30th, we need to have this signed on the 29th if possible.
Any questions or objections for the presenter? Seeing none, that's a go, Nancy.
Great. So with your permission, we'll add these two to this Thursday's business meeting. All the rest will be next week's business meeting. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, the final item is Commissioner Communications.
Who wants to talk first? Commissioner Scholl.
Chair Smith, I made my comments earlier regarding the Vets Village and the homelessness situation. So
Thank
that's
you.
all I have.
Commissioner Schroeder.
Me too.
Commissioner Savas.
I think we spoke to everything that I wanted to speak to today.
Thank you.
Between the sessions today and tomorrow, I think we'll cover the remainder then.
Got it. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, we talked.
You know, I'm kind of done too. It must be because it's, a morning on a Tuesday. Well, we will recess and we'll take up our policy sessions at 1:30. Board, thank you for your work.